2016 in film proved to not only go beyond what we've seen in cinema, but also provided me with several films that went on to become some of my favorite movies of all time. Although 2017 wasn't able to match that same sense of discovery, it still provided a handful of films that proved to be exceptional landmarks for the medium, and stood above the rest with their unique stories and visual styles. Without further ado, here are my top 10 favorite movies of 2017. Guillermo del Toro continues to feed my imagination with The Shape of Water, a story about a mute janitor who becomes enamored with a top-secret creature of unknown origin and the budding love and consequence that follows. Del Toro's signature and unmatchable attention to color grading, visual metaphors, and lifelike practical effects have made him one of the few true fairy tale storytellers of the modern age, and all of his prowess is present in his newest cinematic gem. The lighthearted tale of kindred quiet spirits is expressed beautifully through Sally Hawkins' simple facial expressions and sign language, matched by Doug Jones's physical acting. Alexandre Desplat's gentle yet playful score brings to life Del Toro's eccentric love story, sounding as though we're listening to a French cafe located at the bottom of the ocean. Meanwhile, Del Toro's cinematic patterns of color coordination, precise choice of human entry wounds, and contrasting the strange against the normal continues to beautifully express the wonder and horror that monsters bring to the screen. Continuing in the vein of underwater love stories, The Lure is an erotic Polish pop musical about two mermaid sisters coping with human romance as they become stars of the nightclub scene. Although I've never seen anything like it, it exquisitely feels so reminiscent of a type of cinema that helped me further explore the qualities of the medium, the 2006 to 2007 era of European indie films. Movies that would possess bizarre concepts and eclectic settings, yet never strayed from putting complete passion into the story. The striking qualities that make The Lure recall this personal nostalgia are its beautifully bright neon colors amid murky set pieces. First-time director Agnieszka Smoczynska perfectly describes it as, "Glamour amid poverty fueled my imagination and stirred my memories of the two restaurants my mother ran during the not-so-belle epoch." And these visuals are just one element that give the movie its unique blend of emotions. What is all at once fun and enchanting, yet sympathetic and heartbreaking. The non-sequitur lyrics of the original song simultaneously capture love and excitement. But also loneliness and foreshadowing doubt.
Już dawno nie byłam taka samotna, nie ma na to wpływu ta pora słodna.
This can also be found in the dangerous beauty of the mermaid leads. Silver, who is stubbornly enraptured with her new life and hopeful budding romance, and Gold, whose main priority is the well-being of her sister and her satisfaction with feasting on human flesh. The Lure is just my kind of strange, born from creative honesty and genuine storytelling that aims to both entertain you with something new, yet alter preconceived mythologies. In 2014, the Lego Movie proved to be one of my favorite comedies of all time. The crossbreed between computer animation and stop motion for a world of thousands of details was amazing, and the style of humor was hilarious with obvious observance.
Be the greatest, most interesting, most important person of all times. All this is true because it rhymes.
And perfect timing.
Business. Numbers. Is this working? Yes.
Yay!
And I was very happy to find that these exceptional qualities remained the same in the Lego Batman movie. Will Arnett, aka the best actor to ever portray Batman,
Super modest about it, thank you.
returns in this hilarious follow-up that is both a touching story of fatherhood and funny examination on the Batman franchise.
O'Hara, have you tried the bat phone?
Yes, but all I'm getting is this Hulk music. I love it.
The voice talents are also perfectly casted, with Ralph Fiennes as Alfred and Michael Cera as Robin.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Robin.
As in the small, Midwestern, frail bird.
Yeah, and I already have a catchphrase. Tweet, tweet on the street.
Which means Job and George Michael got reunited in Lego form.
Girl obviously needs a man.
And that's when George Michael became one.
God, that's brilliant. The Lego Batman movie is pure fun through and through and can be enjoyed whether you're a superhero fan or just love to see them satired. Set on Christmas Eve in 1994, Camera Store follows two bitter clerks who find themselves trapped in their once joyful job, which was the opportunity to educate and sell the customers quality cameras, but has now been reduced to a tax write-off for their inconsiderate boss, who forces them to only sell film and never sell more than what is needed for profit. I refer to this film as The Clerks of 2017, a film that is darkly hilarious yet sweetly depressing all at once, with an ensemble cast who shine masterfully in each of their roles. One incredible performance of note comes from veteran actor John Rhys Davies as he pleads to his colleague and best friend to let him sell a camera to an eager and honest customer, not because he wants to, but needs to. He's trying to recapture the feeling of being a salesman and making someone happy.
We have to make the number.
Fuck the number. When did you care about the number? Listen, please, Ray. Please, let me sell a camera. No. I'm asking you. As a friend, let me sell.
With its rich color palette of blue and gold, bittersweet story, and under-the-radar actors, Camera Store almost feels like a hidden gem TV movie, almost like an ABC Family movie from hell, and it's probably the most depressing holiday movie one could watch, as forewarned by writer-director Scott Marshall Smith during a screening. It's certainly a film that leaves you loving and hating the events and characters all at once, which shows just how richly complex the story is. One of the qualities of great cinema is when you find yourself at a loss for how to describe a movie, where the listener simply has to watch it to fully understand its power. Jupiter's Moon is one of those films. A Syrian refugee, desperate to escape his country and find his father, discovers that he possesses the ability to fly. What follows is a parable-driven thriller that captures human struggle within a society that is devoid of hope. This movie was a reminder of why I love movies in the first place. When you take a story that is grounded in human emotion and tangible reality, and add a single drop of the fantastic. Director Cornel Mondrusco states that, "The image of someone flying stays with me. When and how did we lose that innocence and our belief in miracles? If we lost that belief, what are we living for?" He achieves his goal in creating a story that asks that question in the midst of a society that faces subjugation and violence. His main character isn't a superhero. He's a completely average human being who has experienced something unworldly and has no explanation for it. But it's those who witness it that experience the revelation of something impossible. The music alone is absolute perfection. It flawlessly scores the extraordinary visuals with unique sounds that feel as if something is slightly wrong with our reality. The sound of the unknown becoming known. The fluid cinematography is beyond belief, with long, expertly crafted shots that keep you constantly attached to the action, and practical effects that created the film's one-of-a-kind visuals. Jupiter's Moon is an amazing cinematic journey that shows how the impossible can become tangible, and what happens when we forget to open our eyes and look up. Filmmaking at its finest, Christopher Nolan returned this year to bring us a World War II movie unlike any I've experienced. Nolan's superbly polished filmmaking and visual style brings to life an incredible war story, one whose basis lies in getting the hell out of the battlefield rather than heading in. Nolan's decision to ignore heroic characters, backstories, or even showing the face of the enemy allows the film to act more as a moment of time we've been granted a seat to, realistic yet grand and cinematic through and through. The opening scene alone immediately draws you in with its framing, costume design, and solemn stillness. The music and sound design are some of the most engrossingly powerful I've heard, with Hans Zimmer at the helm creating his newest masterpiece. The nerve-wracking sound of a ticking clock, Nolan's own pocket watch, is ever present, making you viscerally feel the tension continue to build and build until the brass and strings brutally slam you down. When the soldiers find a moment of solace, their world is filled with ominous drones, akin to a dying breath from the sea. When the naval ships are inevitably pulled down into the water with soldiers trapped inside, the terror is scored by music that I can only describe as the insanity of a steam train fallen on its side and still running. I was very fortunate to have worked with a projection team that manually ran a 70mm print of the film, meaning that Zimmer's score was blasting in my ears for almost 2 weeks straight, admittedly making me a little biased. It's hard to tell who's going to win the award for Best Score this year. Hans Zimmer? Or Hans Zimmer? Nolan's sophisticated cinematic style, combined with Zimmer's perfect score, makes for a nightmarish experience of the dread one can only imagine to feel during such a hopeless catastrophe. I was first introduced to director Darren Aronofsky's work by watching his horrifying examination on addiction in Requiem for a Dream, in a closed-off, pitch-black storage closet. An experience that was enjoyable, yet made the rest of the day miserable. I continued through his work with Pi, a labyrinth thriller that I have still yet to fully grasp or even form a critical opinion on. And much to my mortified excitement, Mother proved itself to be one of the most terrifying and brilliant movies I had ever seen. Jennifer Lawrence and Javier Bardem play husband and wife who have retreated to a quaint home in the countryside where they hope to find inspiration and tranquility. What follows is a disastrous turn of events. It's very rare that I find myself physically covering my mouth from shock in a theater, but that's how astoundingly horrific the story turns out to be. That's not to say that this film relies on shock value for entertainment, as reviews have claimed, or that the story is an easily conceived metaphor. As an admirer of stories centered on tragedy and drama that goes beyond human capacity, I found Mother to be an exquisite portrayal of the destruction of serenity, the dangers of obsessive belief, and the inner darkness of the human soul, and how passive and childlike it can truly be. Aronofsky complements this with fluid cinematography that gradually adapts to the unsettling dread that fills the story. This dread sinks even deeper as the visceral sound design constantly keeps you on edge, both with still silence and guttural terror. Mother is nothing short of a horrifying yet polarizing masterpiece, and is one of the only films that left me pleasantly brain dead by the end of it. Raw tells the story of a vegetarian freshman at a veterinary college who, after going through a nightmarish hazing ritual, acquires a taste for human flesh. It truly is an uncomfortable but oh so deliciously twisted coming-of-age story that is expressed through vibrant and shockingly rich colors, a tremendous breakout performance from lead actress Garan Smadide, and a melancholic score that's violently driven by synth and violins. Thank God synth is making a comeback for horror, because Raw would not be the same without it. Nor without the choice of European pop songs that make you feel just as terrible. Garan Smadide may have become my most feared horror character of all time. Her portrayal of a girl's descent into hungry madness is extraordinary. She captures the insecurity and isolation of being a forgotten student, the pain of her newfound addiction, and her sick indulgence when she gives in to her hunger. The horror comes from her character's inevitable madness rather than the expected violence, which is surprisingly minimal. But when it does happen, it's portrayed so intimately and patiently that it sticks with you long after. Raw was definitely the best horror movie I had seen in 2017, and it's certainly one of the most unique in the genre. The Florida Project is a bittersweet story of painful truth and natural uncomfortability that can be found in everyday life. A summer of blissful innocence amongst child endangerment as Mooney and her friends gallivant across town, convincing strangers to buy them ice cream, having spitting contests, and exploring every corner of their rundown motel. Meanwhile, her mother Haley is nowhere to be found unless she's cursing up a storm, scamming strangers out of money, and shouts at anyone who questions her parenting. She is the pure image image of an adult who never grew up and doesn't know the meaning of responsibility. Made even worse when you see how she treats Mooney like a friend rather than a daughter. But Bria Vinaitia achieves something amazing in her performance in that you don't hate her character simply because of how believable she is. She's so convincing that you can only appreciate her talent and feel pity for her character rather than anger, especially when you see how much her character thrives on it. Willem Dafoe acts almost like a shepherd to the struggling flock as the manager of the Magic Castle Motel. His summer days are spent evicting furious tenants and nervously keeping an eye on the ever-present children whose parents could care less about their safety. A safety that is endangered by fistfights, prostitution, and strangers who may have an eye for the kids playing outside. Yet all of this danger is shrouded by a dark, lighthearted sense of humor, like the cheerful purple paint job covering the motel, hiding the damaged goods that have taken residence. But Dafoe's patience is inevitably having to be tested again and again, and he has to question, where does sympathy end and enabling begin? Yet amongst all the adult dysfunction lives Mooney and her few friends who don't have a care in the world and go with the flow of their parents' lives. To quote the unbeatable Lillian Gish,
"John, you know when you're little, you have more endurance than God is ever to grant you again. Children are man at his strongest. They abide."
So is the story of their slice-of-life childhood that we sincerely try to focus on to block out reality just as they do. Brooklyn Prince's performance completes the film's pure honesty by portraying a real child through and through, malleable, imaginative, and unapologetic. Throughout the film, Mooney has shown herself to be a clever optimist and a mile-a-minute explorer. She's the driving force of positivity through the whole story. But what breaks your heart is when this little girl, who has greeted everything in life with a smile, cries. You're watching a genuine child cry from the pain of disillusionment, and it's absolutely sobering, honest, and brilliant. To finish with Lillian Gish,
"It's a hard world for little things."
After watching the show for the first time in 2011 and coming to terms with the fact that it would never continue, Twin Peaks returned with absolute perfection beyond anything I ever anticipated, complete with original creators Mark Frost and one of my personal creative heroes, David Lynch. Twin Peaks Season 3 is one of the greatest examples of what happens when you give the original artists free reign over their own story 25 years after it had concluded. Regarded as an 18-part film by Lynch, The Return is an absolute gift of inspiration and thought-provoking narrative, and returning to the same characters 25 years later and seeing them in the flesh as if they never left that world is so spellbinding. The longer I stared into their eyes and memorized the lines in their face, I could see those old friends in that familiar town. Old souls who remained in the darkness of a fire that walked with them long ago, waiting to see if the ashes will blow away and reveal the truth. It is one of the few pieces of fiction this year whose imagery, ideas, and style burned itself into my mind and greatly benefited my imagination in a way only Lynch ever has. But it also leaves me with a feeling of cautionary curiosity. The key that we are given in The Return does indeed unlock a Pandora's box of answers, but these answers are clouded by enigmas, shrouded in riddles, and lost within a labyrinth. It's a story that both benefits and punishes your brain for trying to search for all the answers, showing you that when you stare into the abyss stares back at you. It is truly a gem of fiction and storytelling, and continues to keep me endlessly thinking about what is, what was, and what in God's name will ever be for Twin Peaks. To quote FBI agent Tammy Preston, "This is not a happy story. It doesn't begin or end well. In the middle is equally dreadful."